morning. Thanks so much for the introduction, Mark. I appreciate it. And the invite. It's really an honor to be here. I'm new to town, so if I say things that are indicating any kind of wild ignorance of the local area, please just holler out a correction and a disclaimer at the start that it's certain that I could make some mistakes because I'm new and learning about the area. It's a pleasure to be here at Creative Mornings. I'm an attendee. I have been, not only a fan of Creative Mornings for a long time, but one element of our story as an organization at Drinkwater includes one of my very favorite Creative Mornings talks I've ever seen. And so it's always good to give a reference to that designer, and I will mention that character in my conversation today. Drinkwater is a very strange organization, and I'll start out first with the reason why is because we don't and will never sell water. So all of us are creatives in the room. We think about creativity, and so much of communications and messaging is around sort of building affinity for something with some kind of call to action, some kind of upside, some kind of tangible, everybody kind of advocating things as something that they want to sort of have a closed circle around. That's such a fundamental for so much, especially of the marketing and creative industries. Drinkwater is a little strange because we never are going to sell water, and so our best effect of having somebody say, hey, you know what, I think I will drink water, is nothing that we're involved in on a business side. So that's a little bit strange, it's a little bit weird, a bit of a head scratcher. My partners in Drinkwater are professional snowboarders, one of whom is my brother. And so for my brother and I growing up, our dad was a Main Street entrepreneur in a small town. And we told him, hey, Dad, we're going to start promoting water. It's going to be a thing. It's called Drinkwater. He's like, okay, so what's going to be your distribution strategy for water? How are you going to sell water? And we're like, oh no, Dad, we're never going to sell water. And he's like, okay, so just kind of business 101. When you market something, you usually try to sell it. So instead of doing that, we've gone kind of backwards, and that's one of the strange elements of Drinkwater. It's a bit of a wild story, and so I'm just going to jump right into it. It comes from the same thing that starts so many opportunities for creativity. Really, it's a brief. Really, if it's something that says, what's the problem? What's the thing that needs some solving? What's the thing that could use addressing? What's that thing that calls you to action and says, like, hey, you know what, I should do something about this. What does that look like? So here's a couple things that it could look like. As you can see, there is a helicopter with a man sitting on the edge of it, about to jump in to a mountain range and ride down the range. It's pretty wild to imagine. Another thing I'd like to add, just looking at this visual again from a creative perspective, is not only is there one branded helicopter with an advocate for that brand sitting on it, but this shot is also taken from a helicopter. You got double helis creating this content that you're looking at here. And here's a guy really dropping in. Now, for those of us who, number one, are just the kind of people who look at something and be like, whoa, that's compelling, that's interesting, oh my goodness, this grabs your attention. But even more, this has a specific target. And again, thinking in the context for so many of us working in, say, marketing, communications, and creative industries, often we think, who are we trying to reach? And so the problem is, these guys are trying to reach somebody very specific, resonate, and actually make an activity happen. Here's another example. What's the problem? This is Rob Dyrdek. He's a famous skateboarder. He has a show called Fantasy Factory you might have seen. This is also him getting a tattoo of one of his largest sponsors on his back. Now, for some of us, this seems absurd. And maybe all of us in this room. But for many people, this is really cool and totally badass. So that element of the way that this particular kind of sector is reaching out to people is very specific. And so what's the problem? Well, we start to look at just sort of basic things. And I want to just give a disclaimer. I'm no scientist, not an expert. This is from the National Institute of Health. The basic facts are pretty wild when you look at that sector of the people paying for people to jump out of helicopters and get tattoos of their logos on their back. Between 18 and 34 are the ages that consume the most. Men, almost 1/3 of teens, between 12 and 17, drink them regularly. Well, now what's regularly? I don't know, but not rarely, let's put it that way. And again, next to multivitamins, energy drinks are the most popular dietary supplement. So that's kind of wild because many of us think of them as beverages. Many people treat them like beverages, but they're listed by the FDA as dietary supplements. Think about that for a second. And then this next layer, right? So again, what's the problem? Why be a little skeptical at minimum or at best, profoundly anti these energy drinks? Well, growing scientific evidence shows that they can have serious health effects. This is stuff we can think of in terms of energy drinks, but if you expand the scope and just think of sugary drinks, there's really not a lot of scientific debate that these things have basically a negative macro impact on the way people are getting their calories. Between 2000 and 2011, 2007, 2011, look at this. Energy drink related visits to emergency departments doubled. 2011, 1 in 10 of these visits resulted in hospitalization. So you have something that's, certainly affecting consumers, and you have enough budgets for people to jump out of helicopters and have paid placement on someone's back. So what's the problem? The problem is energy drinks are not only promoting something that's not good, but they're doing so to a specific target community that we all can think about when we see a video clip like this and in our brains go like, yeah, there's definitely heavy metal playing. This is definitely signaling badass, right? And so that element reaches a particular consumer, and that's the point. That's the strategy. That's the same consumer that much of action sports and these industries built around lifestyles like skateboarding, surfing, and snowboarding, motocross, mountain biking, places where Red Bull has really showed up, places where Monster has really showed up and said, we're going to spend a lot of money on this particular advertising sector because we believe the people that are looking, people that are watching the X Games, the people that are interested in this, they're really our target consumer, young people. So that's the problem. That's really the brief. If you grant that, whoa, energy drinks are out here promoting stuff, there's really kind of a capture going on of the action sports markets. They're really trying to reach these consumers. If so, then what do you do about it? And that's why we created Drink Water. My partner, the one that's not my brother, my other partner, Austin Smith, had a breakout year, his first year as a pro snowboarder. He not only won Rookie of the Year, but he won Video Part of the Year. And in action sports, putting out a video is really kind of like the sine qua non of the best thing a snowboarder can do, especially maybe about a decade ago. So he comes out with this gangbusters video part, and he is approached by an energy drink. Hey, would you like to advocate for our brand? Would you like to ride for us? Now, for many action sports athletes, this is a huge honor because, my goodness, not only do the energy drinks compensate you well, but they'll say, hey, why don't we take you to Alaska and you can jump out of a helicopter? But Austin thought through this question and said, hey, what is my job really? And again, this gets at some of this Creative Mornings question, the idea of marketing, the idea of industries based around communication, which is, if you believe that your advocacy leads to somebody doing the thing that you're promoting, sort of a fundamental level of ought I be doing this should run through the lens of, well, if someone does what I'm promoting, is that good for them? Do I actually support this? And for Austin, one of the fundamental questions was, do I actually drink energy drinks? Well, no. No, he doesn't like energy drinks. He doesn't want to promote them. So he has to think through, okay, what do I do? Do I just turn this down? Instead of just turning it down, Austin got a hold of my brother, got a hold of me, and the three of us thought about what would it look like to advocate for what we do think would be cool for a 15-year-old kid to drink? What would it look like to celebrate something that we actually do support, something we actually do consume, rather than a thing that we're hyping out in the world only because they're paying for helicopters and other salaries to, really almost, buy off what you could call loyalty. So that leads to another element, which is about Drink Water, why I mentioned we don't sell water. The reason we don't sell water, after creating this organization, we realized, if we're going to make the case about this, it's more powerful, it's more resonant if we have nothing to gain by you doing it. Right? If I say, hey, really buy these Nike shoes, I happen to work for Nike, and they actually pay me to say that you should buy them. There's an element in our process of critical thinking that you're like, wait a minute, does this person really think they'd be good for me, or are they just paid enough to say that? We see this with energy drinks. One of the things they do It's a big, anytime you're watching the X Games or any one of these events, you see them kind of at a rider, someone finishes their run and they're down kind of at the end, and someone hands them an energy drink. They like pound what looks like a massive can of whatever's in there. Turns out what's in there is called event water. They literally just fill these cans with water. It's still branded, it looks like it, but they're drinking water. To me, that's like a perfect signal of really the depth of how deceiving and really problematic a lot of their marketing is, and why it's so effective. So again, we're out to promote drink water. What's a little weird about it is how we go about doing so. And the reason we do it the way we do might relate to a lot of you guys here at Creative Mornings, and that is when I was a kid, I was drawing logos as a snowboarder in the margins of my notes in school. Maybe some of you guys have ever drawn, like the Stussy S, or we might think about Quicksilver logo, or like the Vulcan Stone, or sort of all these things that we can all kind of relate to. And as you really think about that as a creative, you're like, whoa, so like some of these logos have resonated so much with people that you're literally doodling them in the margins of your notes. Like, that's pretty amazing. Another framework is to think about, you're driving down the street, you see somebody who has put brand logos, stickers, on their car for a company. Like, if you really kind of zoom out, you're like, wow, that's a trip. That's such a trip that you've said, I so strongly identify with this company that I will make it as a way to express my self-identity. So action sports, this lifestyle sort of corollary, this community that's built around this lifestyle, the way it communicates is really pretty amazingly branded. So we came at Drink Water from that aspect of just thinking, because we're people that love brands. We think brands are cool. We are fans of brands. And not to mention my partners who are pro snowboarders are paid to advocate for brands, right? So my brother writes for Quicksilver. Another partner, Austin, writes for the North Face. Other snowboarders who have joined us in advocating for water, they all have different sponsors. So they're used to saying, okay, what would it look like to promote a brand? And how can I be valuable for that brand if basically the kid who watches my snowboard video and thinks it's compelling decides to buy my snowboard jacket that I'm endorsing? This is the model, again, we all know about. We're seeing it rise in social media as like the influencer model. We all know about it as like the Air Jordan model, right? This endorsement model has become a profound way to really get products in the hands of a consumer. I check out Beats by Dre, right? If you think about that product heritage, there were lots of headphones before monster audio cables went to Dr. Dre and said, hey, we want to do a headphone with you. And that's really what took it off, was that advocacy. So my partners, Brian and Austin, understand that that advocacy is powerful. And that was part of our thinking around creating Drink Water. That's part of the reason that we'll never sell water, is we want that to really reach people. So that's a bit of the why of Drink Water. And then another element that relates here to Creative Mornings is the how. How do we promote water if we're not selling water? Some of this, for all of us in the room, will be like, yeah, that's how everyone promotes everything these days. But there's some things we do that are a little differently. The first one is we sell products that just say drink water. And again, I think that sounds like fundamental. And of course, this is like promo swag thinking that you could find at any golf tournament for any fundraiser ever, anywhere. Well, we've done our best to develop distinct products and distinct things that we offer for sale on our website through retailers who've reached out to us and said, hey, we want to sell your drink water stuff, as a way to really reach that audience and let folks join us in this process, join us in this movement of advocacy. So if you're wearing a sweatshirt that says drink water, that's a pretty strong statement. I mean, this is black and white. This is an aesthetic that, it's really conveying a certain degree of intensity, right? And that was some of our goal. So I mentioned one of my favorite Creative Mornings talks was by the guy who designed our logo, a guy named Aaron Draplin. So Aaron is a friend, and when we started thinking of sort of spreading this message and creating a brand around drink water, he enlisted Draplin to really he's got a particular aesthetic that he calls thick lines. And he came and put some thick lines on the logo. And he's a great example of the way that people can build a communication language through iconography. Again, this is the thing that probably everybody at Creative Mornings knows, but it is truly a fundamental of the way we've been out to do what we're doing in the marketplace. So a lot of what you'd see from us is black and white. And that's really about a larger subtext, right, that says it is black and white. You're typically, inside of action sports, seeing people who are either paid by energy drinks to promote them, and sometimes telling us privately, oh, I don't drink that stuff. I really back what you guys are doing, but of course I can't publicly say that. Or people who aren't paid by energy drinks and pretty much go, that stuff sucks. That's not rad for kids. I think what you guys are doing is great. That has been a big wind in our sails in doing this project because so many snowboarders, skateboarders, surfers, mountain bikers, people in these sort of communities of interest that we care about and we love have said to us, hey, I'm really with this. I'm down with what you guys are doing. And some of that feels like it came from elements like the aesthetic, elements like Traplin's inspiration. And lastly, my brother and I grew up being, I was in one of them and being just sort of like kids from a punk rock community. So it's pretty crazy to step out and be like, okay, these kids grew up skateboarding, listening to punk rock. Here they are promoting the most square, mom-friendly message in the world, drink water, right? And so it's been such a strange thing. And again, my dad, the entrepreneur, kind of laughed at us and he said, I'm not sure people really need to hear drink water. Kind of everybody knows this, right? And it's actually no, Dad, that's the trip. Is that everybody doesn't know it today. And oftentimes, because there aren't these multi-squillion dollar marketing budgets behind it, it's not promoted out in front of kids and people who are making a marginal decision oh, what do I want to drink? So that's a big part of what we're doing with drink water is this aesthetic, this communication consistency that says it's going to be a little edgy, it's going to be a little scrappy, it's going to be a little kind of expletive laden, even though it's this super square kind of mom-friendly message. So one of the ways we reach people, we think of our organization as kind of having 3 channels to reaching people and building community. One of them is through products. And that's cliche, that's sort of any element of promoting something. We like to think of it kind of like a merch table at a concert. You go to the show, you're like, I back this band so much I gotta get this shirt. So there's a little bit of that where it's joining kind of yeah, I am one of those dudes who runs an Iron Maiden shirt. And you send that signal to the other guy who would be wearing an Iron Maiden shirt and you're like, I see you. And there's a little bit of that. So that's part of the way Drinkwater conveys our interest and our message. But another way is through the thing, again, it's such a cliche in today's sort of creative industry, but really a significant bread and butter for us. And that's just through Instagram. That's through a channel where not only are we able to tell stories through visual imagery, but more, we're able to build an audience that we can have a two-way conversation with. And this is obviously part of the power of the transformation of social media. I could probably give a whole talk on what concerns me about social media, how it's doing a bunch of probably negative things to culture and society and human interactions. But on the other end, the capacity to reach out to many people at scale and for them to communicate back with you and to have a consistent feedback loop. It's very, very powerful, and frankly, I don't think it's controversial to say has changed the world for ways better or worse. So we want to be showing up in social media in a way that for our followers and for the kids that are into the things that we're trying to talk about, not only adds value and makes them go oh, this stuff's awesome, but also builds that sense of engagement where people can feel not only are they involved, but because of the way it works, they really are a crucial element to this initiative really working. So social media is one of them. Another one is sort of what I would call anthemic content, where we have got to the point, and when we're thankful of it, that we can produce our own videos. So it's not quite a guy jumping out of a helicopter, but this shot is taken from a helicopter. So Brian and Austin, my partners, we're in Alaska, and we're able to ride down some of those mind-bending faces, mind-bending slopes that you're seeing coming from all these action sports brands with big old hefty budgets, and we were able to bootstrap it and make it happen. So we made a number of videos. This is one example of it. It's called Energy. And I just have some screen caps here, but as a corollary of the guy jumping out of the helicopter, this is sort of our conveyance. These are my partners, Brian and Austin. One's my brother out there on that ridgeline. Austin's up at the top. And this is where if you're a kid and you're basically going to be potentially impacted by a brand marketing some kind of interest or activity, it's really important for us to show up in this similar way that someone like a Red Bull does, someone like a Monster does, at this level where it's we're serious, we're doing our best to have this convey as kick-ass as well. So here's this shot, point of view, GoPro on the head of Austin riding down the slope. And the detail in this photo this is really more of a screen grab from the video, but the thing, and you can just see it, is the Drinkwater logo on the nose of that snowboard. So again, it's this how do people spread the message on this? how does this get out there? If you look closely, you can also see the North Face, Smith, Smart Wool, other sponsors for whom Austin rides. But conveying this story about drink water is a part of it as they're out doing this stuff that we all know as resonating as kind of aspirational marketing. So that's part of it. We create content, we create products. And then we also have added another question, which is to say, if we're going to be promoting water, but what about water on the planet? There's actually a water crisis, and this is the thing in the westernized world that we can easily take for granted. It's really simple because not only is it running out of every tap, fundamentally clean water, but even more than that, to be a little graphic for a second, it also runs into the back of all of our toilets. That's potable water. If you really think of that in a sort of developed world, less developed world context, there are almost 1 billion people worldwide that lack access to safe water at all. We are literally running it into the back of our sanitation systems. 2.3 billion people lack access to such a sanitation system. So this is a problem that exists on the world scape such that if we're going to be promoting water, if you're going to be saying, hey, drink water, what about nearly 1 billion people that straight up can't? Whoa, right? So you're advocating that, and you're also trying to go, what does it mean if we're going to be proponents of water to sort of stand up and say, yeah, we believe in this. We really think people should drink water. Where is it that we can take action to see that happen on the other side? And a little sidebar, but part of my background, I've had a strange career path. And for 3 years, I worked at the U.S. Agency for International Development, which is a part of the State Department that does overseas aid. And specifically, I was in the Office of Caribbean Affairs, and one of the countries that I worked on was Haiti. What you may or may not know is Haiti is the country in the Western Hemisphere with the most poverty. Infrastructure for simple things as simple as running water isn't available to everybody. And so when you sort of start to learn about some of these profound challenges that people on other parts of the planet are dealing with right while we're sitting here comfortably, right when we all know clean running water is literally right over there that I can see, it helps us to think bigger about not only are we trying to promote water to kids who are otherwise going to be affected by marketing from energy drinks, promoting something for them that's not good. But if we want to do something about water, we should be thinking in a broader scale. So we also donate to an organization called water.org. And they share some data, not only about who lacks water, but really what are the impacts of not having clean water. 1 million people a year die from water-related disease. 1 million per year. Every 2 minutes, a child dies of waterborne illness. So this isn't what's cooler, a monster tattoo or a drink water hoodie? Okay, we'll meet you there in the attempt to try to resonate. Really in the big world, the question of how do people get water has much more profound implications. And again, for a lot of us, this is stuff that people wouldn't just generally consider because we have clean drinking water. So what do we do about it? Well, again, we're just snowboarders. We're just people that come from the action sports world. We're just the kids that are doodling in our binder margins. So what we decided to do is a thing similar to this, which is let's meet up. Let's get together. Let's do something in person. So let's move beyond the internet conveyance of ideas. Let's move beyond products and say, what would it look like to hold an event where people can come together, not only have fun, have a blast, but also try to raise some resources to speak to this global water crisis. So we created the Rat Race. The Rat Race happens on Mount Hood on a glacier in the summer, and if any of you have ever seen the movie Rad, we tried to replicate the Hell Track, but on the glacier. And so about 150 people come out every summer, and we get together and we put on a race, and we've been fortunate that we've been joined in this race by pro snowboarders, not only from all over the world, but really some of our favorite in the world. So Olympic gold medalists, X Games champions, kind of any value hierarchy where you might say oh, these guys are awesome snowboarders. They come and join us at the Rat Race. Their riders' fees to enter the race, and the sponsorships to donate. And we always do some gear donation giveaways. All of those elements come together to raise money to donate to water.org and have a really good time doing it. So these are some riders that come, and some of you may have never heard of some of these folks, but others, these are true legends of the game. So it's pretty wild to see some of our heroes from childhood snowboarding come out to the mountain and join us in this charity fundraiser. Terrier and Austin Sweeten is an amazing snowboarder. Curtis Cizik is a always podium contender. We've got Jake Blauvelt. Sage Kotzenberg is from right up the hill here in Park City, Olympic gold medalist. Ville Luma is from Finland. Forrest Bailey is from Vermont, and again, some of the best snowboarders in the world. So these are just examples of what it's like to convey, okay, we throw this event, it's kind of a crazy snowboard race. People are doing snowboard races all the time, who really cares? It's fun, but the main thing is it raises money for water.org. So we have awards, and we give out kind of awards, and so the results are, so-and-so got first, so-and-so got second, but the real results are what we've raised for water.org. And Mark mentioned this when we began. It's over $180,000. And on the global scale of the global water crisis, on the global scale of things that multi-squillion dollar brands like someone like Red Bull or Monster can do with resources, $180,000 is pretty modest. But this is basically us. This is like me and two other guys that started Drink Water to promote this brand, to promote water. And so for us, I'm shamelessly proud of having donated this and having raised this kind of money for a cause that we know saves lives. So we feel really positively about this promotion of water, not just because of this tangible impact at the kind of end of the line, but also because we know that we're reaching kids, we're reaching teenagers, reaching people who otherwise are the target market for something that's really not good for them. So we do it a little differently. It's a little strange to be promoting water like this, but we're proud of it. So let's drink water, and thanks for hearing a strange story about a strange brand, and I hope you can join us in promoting this cause. And I guess I would open it up next for questions. So I'll fulfill the brand promise. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
Yeah. So I have this really crazy app that says you must drink water now.
Nice.
Anyways, it's kind of funny because I'm like, oh, I don't want to, and then it harasses me. It's drink water, but I was wondering if you guys have ever looked into the tech side of things and getting into the digital world through apps and stuff and self-improvement.
Yeah, so we it's interesting because there's a couple things. We're all sort of very involved in technology. In addition to Drink Water, I spend a lot of my time day to day working on a small creative agency where we're creating things for our clients that are born through technology, are born through social channels. And a number of our clients have been venture-backed startups that work in the technology space. So, I probably think about this way too much. And we have thought a lot about sort of what you call kind of quantified life elements or ways to add value that can have, again, a tangible impact. There's a really amazing literature on things just called the nudge, so it's what does a nudge look like that can yield a little bit more activity? We have also been pretty modest about what we do, in the sense that the stuff that you see here, this strange organization that we have, the stuff that we do is all things we know we can do well. I mentioned that we donate to water.org. I think a lot of people in our position would say oh, we're going to start a water charity where we go to places that we think need water and we're going to be there for a really cool photo op and also drill a well. That's not something we do because water.org is great at it. And so the way that we can be the most powerful is to do what we're good at, which is promoting stuff, brand marketing, the kind of things that say, hey kids, this is cool. And then we're going to raise those resources and say, hey, you're awesome at making wells happen in places in the world that don't have access. So that partnership is important. Another thing we don't do is ever talk about science. You'll never hear from our brand X amount of pH level of water, or we have this position on fluorination, or there's a wild world of health and all this stuff that lives around water that we also don't mess with. We're not scientists. You know what? Water is better for you than energy drinks. Should it come from a bottle that's double hydrologized or whatever? Maybe. It's water. It comes out of your faucet. Figure it out. Drink water. Don't drink energy drinks, right? And so the technology element is something we thought about as well. What would it look like to kind of have this sophistication and try to make an impact that way? And I'd say generally our feeling is, we just try to stay in our lane. We kind of do our thing that we do and try to resonate in the way that we can resonate. And technology is obviously changing the world. And so areas where, an app could yield more water consumption, we'd celebrate that and say awesome, but that's not what we're awesome at. You know what I mean?
That makes sense.
So you have a question?
Yeah, actually, a couple if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So you guys have done a really good job making a really cool aspirational brand. I'm wondering if you guys have discussed taking it more directly to the energy drinks, a little bit more directly.
Yeah.
Whether that's information to the consumer or some kind of
Yeah.
attack, and what your decisions were about that, and also wondering how you guys are financially supported.
So our financial support only comes from the stuff you saw on the streets. We sell products that have our logo on it. We do events that sponsors donate to. I mean, the rat race is we donate 100% of it. And then lastly, we create content. So the videos you see where there's a guy shooting from a helicopter, sponsors like Quicksilver and North Face would say, okay, we want to sponsor the video. We know 100,000 people are going to watch your video, so we'd love to come alongside your brand and have logos at the start of it and the back of it. So those sort of the revenue model, that's the sort of funny thing is, it's like any other action sports kind of brand and thing in that realm. We just don't sell water on the other end. So that's how we have money that comes in before it goes out and goes to different things. And then in terms of being more directly oppositional, yeah, that's a big debate among my co-founders and I. Partially because, there's pretty powerful, again, I'm going to go kind of deep here, but we're at a moment where there's quite a bit of outrage culture on the internet, and you can gin up a lot of attention by kind of poking the bear. So that's something we thought through, and again, just like thinking on that layer level, you're like, wow, like maybe that would yield not only more like awareness, but maybe more sort of direct head-to-head outcomes. But on the other end, one of the elements of being in this community is, number one, at a basic level, we want to just be promotional. So once you start to become oppositional, and once you start to like really kind of directly, say, troll people, or you sort of directly try to sort of take a fight right to their promotions, you're really changing the feeling of your brand. So for us, in the same way that we don't sell water because we want the advocacy of water to be that much more resonant, it's similar to the way we've decided to be promotional is really to say, you can back this, you can support this, you can wear this on your chest, you can put this sticker on your snowboard or on the back of your car, and you're join us in promoting something positive. We don't say, join us in promoting something positive, and also these other tactics we've used to kind of like attack these guys, or like, how severe do you want to get with us, Instead of kind of going to that realm, we just want to be promoting basically the positive message of drinking water. And like I said, what's been so powerful about it is that's really pretty universal. And if we do a good job in supporting water.org, it can be actually universal worldwide, where we can say, hey, for everybody, this is a good thing for your health. So that's some of our thinking around it. Of course, I probably could think of a couple case study examples where like, oh, because you were kind of oppositional and leading kind of a fight on this particular topic, it yielded these outcomes. But for our focus, we felt like the main thing is to be positivist and to be encouraging and to be celebratory. And that comes across in a lot of our content. That comes across in a lot of the ways that we're trying to build a community and trying to kind of, not only in person at our race events, but in the way that our voice is conveyed across our brand, is trying to do more of a high five and saying like, join us in this. You're welcome to come with us. Anybody's welcome. We want to be as maximally inclusive as we can. And so we try to avoid a little bit of that haterade, as they'd say.
We got time for one more question.
I have a two-part question. One is, in your day-to-day life, with your brand where it is, what does that look like? And two, when you look back, you have the very beginning ideas of this brand, how is it completely, what are things that turned out the way you thought they would, and things that have completely changed? So we were like, yeah, what is this? I want this to be this thing, and now where you are right now, how has it changed, and how has it stayed the same?
Yeah, so in terms of day-to-day, that's probably not dissimilar to a lot of our workloads. It's pecking away on a computer. It's thinking about things like, hey, there's a distributor in Australia that says we want to distribute your products to some snowboard shops. How can we make that happen? So it's like, again, just like simple working in any organization. Okay, how would we distribute that? How would we figure that out? How would we make that work? email, wire transfer, product order, inventory, or all those kind of like details of management is part of it. Part of it is for my partners who are pro snowboarders. I mean, they literally right now, one of them is in British Columbia and the other one is in Alaska right now. Every year they're chasing storms around and snowboarding. And so they're really at the tip of the spear of this, just in the way that they're out conveying it. They're really living this life. And I think that's part of the reason the brand has resonated with people, is because there isn't a gimmick here. There isn't like a, hey, corporate strategy in the boardroom. What if we hired some cool snowboard bros to promote our brand? It's really not that. This really comes, as Damon John says, this is for us, by us, right? So this comes from a place of like, these are our lifestyles. And to add a layer to it, I'm new to town. I mentioned I moved here from Portland, Oregon, and I moved to Summit Park up in the woods so that a lot of my day-to-day could be snowboarding as well. Because that's such a sort of a fundamental level of this community that we're part of and the way that we show up for it. So it's not just a lifestyle brand, it's like actually a lifestyle in terms of the day-to-day. And then in terms of the way that it's changed, we are continually surprised and impressed and honestly humbled by people being like, hey, I back this, how can I support Drinkwater? That includes Anthony Kiedis from the Red Hot Chili Peppers being like, I'm going to wear a Drinkwater hat on our whole tour that we're going on. That includes, as Mark mentioned in the introduction, just even having articles in the New York Times. Crazy, what? Oh my goodness. One of my partners, Austin's dad, owned a bookstore. And so this is a guy who, was in the business of delivering printed ideas to customers in his life. And it really blew him away that his son was published in the New York Times, a guy who got there because he loved snowboarding and decided to stand up for what he believes in. And then lastly, this is a bit of a personal arc at the end, but probably the thing that's changed my life the most about Drinkwater is one of the pro snowboarders I included there in photos is a guy named Terje Haakonsen. He's a Norwegian pro snowboarder. He called my brother Brian and said, hey, we want you to be a sponsor of this contest I put on called the Arctic Challenge. It's the final stop of the World Snowboard Tour. And at this point, Terje was a very famous pro snowboarder, and my brother was not as famous as Terje, and he thought it was a prank call. We ended up going to Norway because a foundation there said, hey, we like your cause. We want you guys to be the marquee sponsor of this final stop of the World Snowboard Tour, but we'll pay for it because we know you don't have the resources, and a lot of them are going to water.org, so why don't you come out here, spread your message, we'll make sure you're the marquee brand on it. So we did that for 2 years, but the first year, on the first day that we got to Oslo, on a random occurrence, walking into a cafe in Oslo, I met my wife. So, it's like, what has Drinkwater created? Probably the most surprising thing is love. So yeah, it's really true. So yeah, thanks for having me, guys. What a pleasure, and I'm grateful to join this community. Like I said, new to town, and so I'll be seeing you guys next month at Creative Mornings.
Thank you everyone for being